I'm the last speaker of the conference, and I would like any, thank you. Got 2 chocolate chip cookies, which I'll reward myself with after. I would like anybody who has been a coordinator of this conference to please raise your hands. And let's give them all a big hand. Congratulations. Really, what a big success, and couldn't be more important. I think John just said it so well. You can't leave quite yet, John. No, just that we could, with just a focus on riparian conservation and multiple benefit approaches, we could save the state of California from the throes of drought and floods and fire, and what we know is part of the present and part of our future. I was asked by a few people today about the fires in the North Bay, and I did want to tell you that. So Point Blue's headquarters is in Petaluma, and we have probably 15 staff at least that were directly impacted by the fires, where they either had to evacuate or were right on the edge of evacuation areas. None of them lost their homes, thankfully, but all of us know people who did lose their homes, and it's quite sad, devastating for so many of us. It will be a long time before that North Bay community is really 100% back on its feet. We did participate in a planning meeting already on Monday with other NGOs to talk about how we could help make sure that the rebuilding effort is as ecologically sound as possible and as climate smart as possible. So we'll learn more about that over the weeks ahead. But it's interesting to see the enormous events that have happened around the world, and they have been happening all over the world. Record-breaking hurricanes, and there was just a record-breaking windstorms and hurricane hitting Ireland earlier this week, a tropical storm in Ireland. We're seeing the predictions of climate change happening right now. It isn't just about future generations. It is about us right now. And we all are truly part of the solution. I have been looking at some of the recent studies that are trying to figure out what really is our goal here. What is it that we need to do to secure a healthy future for all of us on this planet, at least for life as we know it right now, for the wildlife that we love, and for our human communities. And there is one study from our sort of grandfather climatologist, Jim Hansen, that came out in July. And he talks about, it's the only paper that I found that gave a very specific goal that said to secure a safe climate by 2100, we actually have to pull out of the atmosphere about 550 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide. And for the first time, I met him, I think 8 years ago, and I talked to him about nature-based solutions, and he didn't seem too interested in it. For the first time in this paper, he actually talks about several nature-based solutions that have to be part of the climate solutions toolkit, if you will, to secure our future. And it includes what he says is reforestation, managing soils much better, changing how we manage agricultural and working lands, and a massive reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. What he says we'll need, if we can gear up for it now, starting by 2021, we need a 6% a year reduction in greenhouse gas emissions globally with the nature-based solutions. Another study just came out early this week from the Nature Conservancy, funded through the Doris Duke Foundation, that concluded that 37%, so about a little more than a third, of the greenhouse gas emissions reduction that are part of the Paris Agreement by 2030 could be done from nature-based solutions. Most of that is not focused on riparian habitat, but actually on tropical forests, tropical rainforests. And a lot of that has to do with stopping the destruction of the rainforests and maintaining them as stores of carbon and all the other benefits that come from it. So one of the things that Jim Hansen talks about is that the Paris Agreement, despite the encouraging news that almost every country in the world has signed on to it, The challenge is that having a goal of 2 degrees Celsius may be the wrong goal. In fact, many climate scientists feel that we are already on track for it, that we already have enough warming in the system that we will go beyond 2 degrees Celsius even if we stopped all of our carbon pollution today. And so that's why Jim Hansen talks about getting back to a safe climate by 2100. He talks about even the aspirational goal of the Paris Accord. Anybody know what that is? To keep the temperatures to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial times of warming. That it turns out that 120,000 years ago, that's what the temperatures were, equivalent to 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming today, but sea levels were 20 to 30 feet higher than they are today. So we have a big challenge ahead, a huge challenge ahead, and nature-based solutions, the work that we all do, has got to be part of this. We've had a great session earlier today about multiple benefit approaches, and can't remember who said it, but one of the panelists said, yes, I know we're supposed to be thinking about carbon and we're supposed to be thinking about other things, but for me, it's all about wildlife. For somebody else, maybe it's all about carbon. And for somebody else, maybe it's all about water, if you work for DWR, I don't know. But the bottom line is that we're seeing more and more science that shows it's not one or the other. They all influence one another. They all influence one another. You don't get biodiversity without carbon, a healthy carbon cycle, and without healthy water cycles. You don't get clean water without healthy biodiversity and without carbon. And you don't get carbon without biodiversity and without water. They all influence one another. So we know that everything that we do has to be multi-benefit in the approach, and it's also, I believe, how we'll get human communities more engaged in this. So I want to just share a quick personal story that 2 weeks ago, my partner broke her arm very badly, her upper humerus. And we were in the emergency room in Marin County. And while we were sitting there, we heard from the speaker system, code blue, prepare for code blue. So anybody know what code blue is? Yes, so somebody was having a heart attack and they were bringing the person in and they said code blue arriving in 4 minutes. And they took us, we were in one of the little rooms in the emergency room area. They took us out and put us in the hallway because they had to move people around to make room for the code blue person coming in. And it was unbelievable what I saw. I saw in 2 minutes at least 14 medical personnel and technicians all lined up, and the 15th giving instructions about what they were going to do when the code blue person came in. And I don't know what happened to that person. I was very impressed by the level of organization in the ER. I think of where we are today as a planet as being in the emergency room, and all of us in riparian conservation, we are the emergency room personnel. We're all there. We all need to work together to help save that life, and that life is the life of our planet. But it means we all have to do a lot more than we've been doing. And I know you might think, how can we do more? We just organized this whole conference. We're doing a huge amount of work. How can we do more? But the truth is we really need to. Each one of us needs to step up and think about, in our day-to-day work, what more we can do. And I would add to that what we can do in the communities that we live in. I decided myself this summer for the first time, to join my town sustainability commission. I thought, I speak about climate change a lot. I make suggestions about what people should do. It's time for me to find out what's it like to actually try to implement it. And I think we all need to be doing that. We need to step up, and as we were talking about earlier, we can be opinion leaders in our communities. We should be running for office. We should be engaged in the political process. We need to make a difference with the knowledge that we have in this community, and we can do it. But we have to work together. We have to employ some of what we call our climate smart principles, which means our 10% rule. Anybody know what that is? 10%. Test and experiment now. At companies like Google, they pay their staff for 20% of their time to do creative things in the community. I'm saying, well, at least 10% of the time in our work today, We need to be as creative as possible. It means not fearing to fail. It means rewarding failure as long as we're learning from it. It means trying new things, pushing the envelope, encouraging our coworkers to do the same, and really pushing so that we can see what works and what doesn't. And to understand what works and what doesn't, it has to be done adaptively. We have to keep monitoring it in whichever way it is appropriate. We have to look at those measures, assess what's working and what's not, and keep doing more of what is working. We're not going to get to a place of stasis. We're getting to a place of even more rapid change. So it means thinking differently than we as humans naturally tend to do. It means thinking flexibly, being prepared for change all the time. My message to you today is we can do it. We are leaders in California. How goes California, goes the world. And today the world is looking at us, and so I ask all of you to stand up and do the best that you can, do even more. We always have more capacity to advance our conservation efforts in this climate-smart way with multiple benefits to make a difference for our future. So thank you so much for the incredible work that you all do. And as Gandhi said, be the change we want to see. Let's go do it. Thank you all for your incredible work, and thanks for a great conference.